Okay, as a lot of you are probably aware, the New York Times did a piece on about 50 women that had, let us say, less than favorable experiences with Donald Trump. Now, Donald Trump obviously is pushing back on this, but I got a couple of questions before I even get heavily into this particular piece. If 50 women have claimed that they had negative experiences with Donald Trump, and a bunch of these GOP people who are supporting Trump don't believe them, then why is it that they believe that 50 women had negative experiences with Bill Cosby, and there's no evidence, the same as there may not be any evidence here against Donald Trump? So that's just a little food for thought, you know. And a bunch of these women that have accused Cosby have been disproved, discredited, etc. Yet the stigma still remains. Now here is an instance where the New York Times did a story, and the very first person that they led off with is this Rowanne Brewer Lane, who they claim gave them the information that they have published, and now she's coming back and disputing this. Now, something is wrong here, and this could probably be easily cleared up if they do what most reporters do these days. They tape record the full interview with the person, and if they are right with what they're claiming, and they're claiming they didn't take anything out of context, and they put in a lot of extra stuff as far as her statements are concerned, and at the same time, she's not claiming that they misquoted her. She's claiming that they took stuff out of context, which, again, the tape recording of her full conversation with the reporter should be able to clear that right up. So anyway, I'm going to play the piece where she's claiming that the New York Times did a hit piece on Trump, and they had told her that they were not going to do a hit piece. This was going to be a positive article on Donald Trump. Now, I took a look just for argument's sake to see what her deal was, and just so that you know, she and Trump they had a romance for a couple of years, and then I guess he dumped her. And she was an actress on two TV shows. You know, weren't really any big deal. And now, according to MSNBC, she's got some kind of a radio program going, so this might be an attempt to get herself back up into the spotlight to get some free publicity for herself and for her show. Again, I don't know. And if she's telling the truth, one easy way to prove it, yes or no, would be that tape recording. But anyway, here's Rowanne Brewer Lane's interview on MSNBC.
Twitter again. The New York Times is so dishonest, he tweeted. Their hit piece, cover story on me yesterday, was just blown up by Rowanne Brewer, who said it was a lie. Well, fortunately, Rowanne Brewer Lane is now joining us live, and Rowanne is the host of Click on This Show, an online lifestyle web series. Rowanne, thanks for being here. Nice to speak to you.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it very much.
I want to start and just get your gut reaction to this. When you read the Times article, your gut reaction was what?
Oh my gosh, they didn't do what they did. I was extremely disappointed when I saw that. I was promised so many times by them and to my manager and myself just over and over again that it was a positive article that I was giving them, and that's how it was going to be depicted, that it was not a hit piece, that it was just each person's rendition of their experiences with Donald Trump, and mine
like they spun
was...
your experience. Yeah, as you say,
My
I bet you feel
experience
like
was...
they spun it into a negative.
They absolutely did. I don't have a negative story to give about Donald Trump because I don't have a negative, account of anything. We had a great relationship. I just really felt like that they misled me into that the entire time, into that article, and that it was almost a trap.
So
Now, you take a look at that picture and her current picture. She really let herself go, but that's neither here nor there.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I just want to ask you about this specifically. For you and for our viewers, I want to play what one of the Times reporters who put that front page story together said about you, about what you told the paper. Take a listen.
I'm going to let her speak for herself, but I think readers of the story can digest what happened to her at Mar-a-Lago in 1990. They were at an evening pool party, and he asked her, after taking a long tour of Mar-a-Lago, if she had brought a bathing suit. When she said she had not, he opened a drawer of bathing suits. The story is a little involved, but ultimately said he asked her to put on one of those bathing suits. She did, and then he brought her out back to the pool in the crowd and essentially asked the crowd, did they all think that she was a beautiful Trump lady? Mm-hmm. And I recall in my interview with her that she expressed she basically said, I was taken aback by this, and I think that's how we depict it. I think people can evaluate the story kind of on its own merits.
Okay, now words have meaning, okay? And you really have to listen to the words that he spoke. He didn't absolutely say that Trump basically presented her, I guess, as a showgirl or whatever, but he kind of intimated it. Now let's see what her response is going to be.
So is that an accurate depiction of your conversations?
Honestly, if he would have written it more like that, it would have been closer to the truth.
So basically, he told the truth. Now she's trying to spin, and again, you got to remember this too. She's a Trump supporter. And the funny thing about Trump's ex-women, none of them really want to talk bad about him. I don't know why. Maybe, they've come to grips, or, they've made their peace with the situation and moved on, etc., etc. You have some women that are like that, and again, I take my hat off to those women, because you get a lot of women who basically, it takes them forever to move on. And this sounds like it's one of them. But again, she could have an ulterior motive here, i.e., she gave the story one way, and now she's coming back and spinning it a different way in order to get herself out there in front of TV cameras again.
Still, the way that he's using it makes it look like paraded me. I never said that he paraded me anywhere, and that word keeps coming up. I think it's a negative, ugly word. He did not parade me anywhere. He didn't force me to put anything on. He didn't take me out there and ask anybody, what do you think? Do you think? Is she
You
this?
said you were flattered.
He didn't ask anybody anything. He said, now that's a stunning Trump girl. And I was very flattered. I was indeed flattered, and I made that very clear to the writer that I was flattered by that.
Rowanne,
So that made it sound like he put a piece of meat out there for his guests to inspect, and she was flattered by it. But that's just me.
Let me ask you if I can. Obviously, you've said that Donald Trump was nothing but a gentleman to you in your experience. His opponents right now, as you've surely seen on television, are pulling old clips of him to try to cast a very different light. Here's one example which I want to play.
She ate like a pig.
I'd look her right in that fat, ugly face of hers.
He once sent her a picture of herself with the words, "The face of a dog," or nothing.
Blood coming out of her, wherever. A person who's flat-chested is very hard to be a 10.
What do you make of those comments from Donald Trump's own mouth over the years?
To be honest with you, I didn't hear any of them in the context of which he was using them.
Okay, that's the ultimate spin, just the one sentence alone, okay, in his opinion, a woman has a hard time being a 10 if she's flat-chested. Give me a break. But, and then she must have been living under a rock, because all of those comments have been blasted across the media, for at least the past 6 months or so. So for her to say, she doesn't know the context for which they were given, that's lame. That's just lame.
Played like that, it sounds like somebody just saying whatever comes to their mind. I can't make apologies for that. I don't know how, in what context it would be used again. So I'm sure Donald has his version of what he was saying and why and how he feels about that. That's his deal.
Does that kind of language, obviously, does that kind of language make you feel generally uncomfortable or no?
He never ever was like that anywhere near me, nor was he with any women that I ever saw him around. He was nothing but a gentleman, very gracious to women. They liked him. They were very pleasant. Every woman I ever met had respect for him, and extreme respect he had for them as well. And everybody was just, I never saw or heard him speak illy of any woman or man, for that matter, to be honest with you.
We should note the New York Times released a statement that they shared with us. It says, Miss Brewer Lane was quoted fairly, accurately, and at length. The story provides context for the reader, including that the swimsuit scene that you described to us earlier was the start of a whirlwind romance between Ms. Brewer Lane and Mr. Trump. I know I've heard you in some other conversations you've had over the course of this day saying that you are now a Trump supporter. Have you or your agent, your publicist, had any conversations with him or his staff or his aides in any form since this article came out?
Not to my knowledge at all, no. As of the last time I spoke to my manager, no. I was not happy with the way that the article was written, and I was promised that it wouldn't be done that way, and it absolutely was. I don't think it was fair to me, and I don't really think it's fair to him. It seems to me like they must have some sort of agenda, and they're following it. And hearing what you played back from Michael, it was a much more buffered version of what was actually printed. And if they are saying that those were direct quotes from me, they were not direct quotes. And again,
she better be careful, because now she just definitely jumped into let's hear the video portion of this, because if she's saying they're not direct quotes, and they were, she's opening herself up to libel.
The parts that were quoted immediately, the rest of the sentence would be immediately following, I was going to say, but the rest of the sentence was, and I was flattered by that, or it was such a boyish charm of his that I wasn't used to, because you would expect something more bold and brash out of him, but he really had a gentle personality compared to what my judgment of it would have been, coming into meeting him. But he was a very, very down-to-earth, lovely person. I've never seen anything harsh.
We very much appreciate you spending some time with us. Thank you so much for talking to us today.
I thank you very much for that.
All right, so that was Trump. Big money, sweeps this young naive girl basically off her feet, runs around with her for I guess a year or two, whining and dining her, and I guess he must have. When he dropped her, he probably dropped her, pretty decently. So she doesn't really have anything bad to say, about him. And especially now, since she's a Trump supporter. But I'm back into she may have given that interview the way the New York Times has indicated. And now she's basically giving a different slant on it. And again, if we could hear the recording or get a transcript of the complete interview that the New York Times did with her, that would clear a whole lot of this up.